Good evening. I'm Eric A. Cinotti, and this is Unplugged, where we cut through the noise, strip away the spin, and get straight to the truth. Tonight, we're talking about the very core of American freedom, more so than most of the other episodes we've done. We're talking about the primary core of what America totally is, freedom. And we're going to talk about that with two amazing guests tonight and amazing conversations. We're not talking about theories. We're not going to talk about slogans, but we're going to talk about what happens every single day when government collides with ordinary citizens and government thinks that they're better than you and me. When the lights flash in your rearview mirror, and we all have been there, at that moment of fear, the lights are flashing, you're assuming you did something, you don't know, but you never know. Law enforcement is now going to approach. When the officer knocks on your window, and the authority demands obedience. And we know, and our guests will tell you, they demand obedience. Those are the critical moments where the Constitution is tested and where liberty lives or dies. And folks, sadly, many times it dies. But our guests tonight are going to tell you how, yes, it has died, but they are at the forefront of defending it and ensuring that it realives itself and is stronger than ever before. For too long, Americans have faced those memories all alone, by themselves, suffering in silence. No attorney at their side, no safeguard in the room, just one citizen against an entire government, against the entire state. And in those moments, the rights on the papers vanish in a mere moment of practice. We live in an era where qualified immunity shields misconduct, where militarization of law enforcement has buried the line between protecting communities and intimidating them, and where the Supreme Court in Nome v. Vasquez has upheld sweeping immigration stops based on language, location, and the type of work. Dismantling justices warned the decisions could create a second-class citizenship in our own nation, the United States of America. If that is the reality of justice today, folks, when the answer must be bold, innovation, patriotic, must be courageous. Because freedom is not self-executing. It is a must to be defended and defended in real time. And on this show and on my other show, The Hostile Zone, we discuss that. And here we are yet another night. Tonight, we're going to meet two men who embody that defense by the very core of their fabric, by the very essence of their being, by the very presence of their embodiment, no matter where they are. These men stand tall, stand proud. And these men, we should be thankful for them. One has built a shield so that America never faces law enforcement alone again. Bravo to him. The other puts himself on the front lines. And I can tell you, I've watched this guy, I know this guy, and a lot of you probably have, and if you don't, you're going to know him tonight. He really puts himself on the front line for you. He paid a heavy price for it several times. We must applaud him for that. And he does it with nothing other than a camera and a copy of the Constitution, many times referring to himself as Ben Franklin, which we'll make light of that when he gets on. Demanding accountability by those who very swore an oath and demand that they uphold that oath. Because remember, we are the taxpayers, folks. You are the taxpayer. When somebody takes an oath, whatever public position they're in, they work for you, me, they work for the taxpayer. They're bound by an oath. They raise their right hand. I do solemnly swear to uphold and support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that actually means something. Those of us that wore the uniform, those of us that bared the burden of many conflicts and of many deployments, we understand what that means. And these gentlemen, I applaud them for standing up for it. Together, they're a mighty duo. They're a team. They represent the next chapter of American liberty. This is not about being on the left or on the right. This is about being an American. It's about being free. It's about being a democratic republic that we're supposed to be. And tonight, we're going to fight for it. So we're going to have two guests tonight. Normally we have one, but we're going to have two, and they're going to work in tandem together. The first guest is David C. Walton. He is the founder and CEO of Attorney Shield. Attorney Shield, wonderful app. We'll get into more details about it. My guest is leading a revolution on how Americans defend their rights. David C. Walton, the co-founder and CEO of Attorney Shield, Inc. Now, Attorney Shield, Inc. is more than just an app. Okay, it's not just one of those apps you find on the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store. It is a lifeline. It is a lifeline. With one tap of your finger on your phone, a citizen in crisis is immediately connected to a licensed attorney within 30 seconds. 30 seconds. You immediately now are no longer alone in your car. Wherever you might be in America, on the smallest road or the busiest road, you are not by yourself. It is not you versus the state. It is not you versus the government. It is you and your attorney through Attorney Shield together facing that incident. Not after arrest, not before, not after, long before any of that happens. Long before your rights can even be violated. They are right there. They're right next to you in real time. Under David's leadership, Attorney Shield has grown to protect thousands and hopefully more tonight, folks. We're going to give you information. This is a must sign up. It's a couple cups of coffee a month and you are protected 24 hours a day. Where else are you going to get that? His mission is clear and it's patriotic. It can't be explained any other way other than a true patriot. No American should ever face law enforcement without counsel at their side. David Walton, welcome to Unplugged. It is our honor to have you with the show tonight. Our extra special guest that was an add-on guest because we were so lucky to be able to secure his time because he is very busy and heard the saying, have the cops kick rocks or the walk of shame. You've seen Sean Paul Reyes from a Long Island Audit. He goes there with a camera and a constitution and he makes sure that you have the ability to walk into your government building, your tax-funded building, and you have the rights to walk around and video and watch your tax dollars hard at work. And he's my second guest. He is the most recognized. There are a lot of people out there calling themselves First Amendment auditors and whatnot. He is the OG. He is the original. And in my opinion, by far one of the most professional people out there that does this with class, honor, and intelligence. And he does it with a poise that you just can't help but to watch the entire episode. He is an activist. He is an investigative journalist in America today. Sean Paul Reyes, known as Long Island Audit, is a citizen voice for liberty and accountability. Sean's mission is to exercise rights respectfully. And as he says, to respectfully, and I'll quote him, peacefully, because he's always peaceful. Always. There's some other, if you watch, a lot of people may have watched other First Amendment auditors. Sean is always peaceful and he respectfully is just exercising his rights, which are your rights and my rights, and we thank him for that. And he exposes those that do not honor their oath. And with his camera and his immense courage, he's been in handcuffs, he's been pulled over by law enforcement, he can tell you the whole gamut retribution he's faced, but he's inspired millions, he's inspired me, and he's going to be on our show tonight. But he has gone so much further than just exercising his rights. He educating government. Sean has provided free, F-R-E-E, folks, free. He's not charging any local governments, law enforcement, to provide them First Amendment training to law enforcement, prosecutors, district attorneys, and other related government agencies. Most recently, he just completed working with Chatham County, Georgia. I believe the district attorney's office, and they'll tell us more about that. Think about that, folks. Think for one moment. Lament that thought. A citizen, not a politician, not a corporation, a citizen, teaching government how to honor the Constitution and uphold the oath that they swore to hold. It's an amazing thing. His rally cry is powerful and clear. Our rights will not be violated. Not now, not ever. And if you watch and listen to any of my shows, the American flag isn't going anywhere. Sean Paul Reyes, welcome to Unplugged. It is our privilege to have you stand with us tonight. So we're going to have Dave and Sean enter the show, please. Bring them both in. Hey, welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Eric.
Are we okay?
Hey, Eric, thank you. Yes, Eric, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a pleasure. So before we get into like our conversation, and you know, I don't sandbag people. I don't set anybody up on questions. You don't know the questions because we don't do that. You know, this is not a Hillary Clinton debate. You know, I'm not Donna Brazil. I'm not going to give you answers in advance. But I'd like to give you both, you know, a couple seconds to tell the folks who you are. Not that you need to.
So I'll go first. Sean Paul Reyes, Long Island Audit. You know, I've been engaging in First Amendment protected activities for 4 years now. When I first started, I started off just with a camera. I used to watch other First Amendment auditors, and honestly, I thought a lot of them could be a little bit abrasive, and I wanted to go out in my local town in Long Island and exercise my rights. And I had immediately a horrible interaction 4 years ago now, and I would never think that I would arrive where I am today, and I'd have the support of millions of people across our country. But I had a really bad experience with the law enforcement officers in my hometown. It just instead of making me scared and terrified of law enforcement, it emboldened me to want to go out and travel the entire country to exercise my rights peacefully.
They poked the bear. They poked the bear. They created a platform for you.
Yeah, it started about 4 years ago. I just picked up a camera. I went to my local police department. I was filming the parking lot area, and I noticed there was a lot of militarization of the police. Like, that's when it really opened my eyes that they have like a lot of military equipment and military vehicles, and I thought it was interesting. And as I was filming those vehicles, 3 plainclothes law enforcement officers came out of the headquarters. They surrounded me. They demanded ID. Very unprofessional. I was actually terrified in the moment. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't as confident as I am today, and which is by design. I believe that our country is very undereducated when it comes to our constitutional rights and how to exert them in these kind of situations. So I was just like, I don't consent to any searches or seizure.
They're telling you to be afraid. Comply.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, I don't consent to any searches or seizures. I don't, and I was just rambling whatever I heard online. And luckily, I wasn't arrested. I wasn't assaulted in that. But I just felt disrespected. I felt, how are these public servants going to treat me in that way? And instead of just deterring me, it actually emboldened me to continue my work and to continue doing this all throughout Long Island. And then I moved over to Connecticut, upstate New York, California, Hawaii. I've been to almost every state in the last 4 years, exercising my rights peacefully. And I'm very proud of the work that I've accomplished. As you stated in the intro, I've done trainings with law enforcement officers across the country, district attorneys' offices. So it's been one hell of a ride, and it's been a great one.
I mean, that was like a terrifying experience. So then you had to make a decision to say, I'm gonna do something about this because I don't want somebody else to experience this.
I had a decision to make. It was either never do it again because I was terrified that day, or continue to do it, overcome that fear, and fight for every single American's rights, because it's so important. I knew I could be effective, and I just executed, and I wanted to. And now, again, I'm not anti-law enforcement. I am pro law. Right. I am pro law and order. I expect public servants to respect the public, to honor the oath that they took.
U.S. Constitution.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You know, it's very important because we, the people, against the government. Like, we need to be able to hold them accountable. This government is for the people, by the people, or at least it's supposed to be, not corporate interests, not law enforcement. You know, it always concerns me when people are like, law enforcement officers are heroes. Can they be heroes? Sure. And are they heroes? Yeah, they can be heroes, but to generalize them. Right. But they could also be tyrants. Correct. And they could also be tyrants. And we need to be able to expose that and hold them accountable. I always say the biggest problem in law enforcement is the lack of accountability. You know, some people talk about education, which is definitely a problem, the lack of education on constitutional rights, but accountability, which ironically is what law enforcement officers do to us. They hold us accountable for criminal actions, but they're never held accountable for their criminal actions for the most part, in my experience, the last 4 years. So I think that needs to be done because it deters other law enforcement officers from engaging in that sort of misconduct.
I watched a lot of your stuff from the same area, from the same hood almost, I guess we could say. And I find that you are extremely professional, honestly. And some of the people are so vile towards you. You're a better man than me, Sean. You really are. You take it well. Overall, I found out you do have a good relationship with so many. You do. So many. I mean, they're calling you all the time for training.
Some of my closest friends are law enforcement officers, captains in police departments, police chiefs, ex-police chiefs, military personnel.
So they fill your tip box with information.
Right. A lot of my tips come straight from law enforcement officers inside and outside of the department, where they tell me the corruption and tyranny that's taking place. My problem is, my biggest issue is that mainstream media, corporate media, this is why independent media is so important. Mainstream corporate media, they work with the police department. And I say sometimes even for the police department, because they want the stories of the deadly car crashes.
Yeah.
They want all of those tips that they get, those exclusive tips for, the car crashes, the bank robberies and everything else. They're very reluctant to run stories that are anti, the police, or at least pro, accountability, I should say, not anti-police, but pro accountability.
I would say accountability and
Right.
How about pro-American? How about
Right, pro-American, right.
David, how would you like to be addressed?
Yeah, so, I appreciate
Is it Dave or David? You want me to
it's either or, but David is what I go by myself. So
you've created a great program. Explain to folks how you got to where you are and what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm the co-founder of Attorney Shield, and this business was founded on really sort of an experience, right? And so just to tell a little bit about the origin story, I was in the airport in a previous job, if you will, before we started this business. And there was a gentleman sitting in the terminal who was upset, right? And we didn't know why at the time. But as it turns out, his father had passed. He was trying to fly up to New York to get to his family to support his mom and his sisters. And because he was upset, the gate agent would not allow him to board. Yeah, because he was upset that his father passed. They wouldn't let him on the airplane.
I didn't know that was a new TSA policy. I was not aware.
Well, I don't think that's a policy. I just think it's gate agent's discretion because it was kind of BS, but whatever. So he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't take no for an answer, insisted that he bought the ticket and deserved to get on the plane. They called airport police. Airport police showed up, told him to leave the terminal. He refused. They immediately zapped him with a taser, dropped him on his nose, busted his face wide open, put him in a wheelchair after zip tying him, and that's the last I saw of the guy. Part of me was shock, but the other part was I didn't do anything. I didn't sort of step in. I don't know what I could have done, but it bothered me. Once I get to where I'm going, I'm up at Javits Center up in New York, and once the conference is done with, I'm sort of moving around, and I'm thinking, I got to solve for this. I can't forget it, right? And so I literally came home and went to work, and it was 18 months of sort of planning and making sure we understood the compliance and the tech and this, that, and the other. It's also where I met Sean, and Sean helped us along with the Dale Hiller with Lackluster to help us launch this idea to the public, right? To build a community around it, right? And so we've essentially launched and went live April of 2024. And so we've been live for over a year and a half. And we serve thousands of members across the entire United States. And this is specifically for police-initiated contact, right? And so whether it's a traffic stop, most people are going to encounter police when you're in your car. But it goes beyond that. We've had people stopped on their bicycles, homeless people stopped in the subway. Police will show up at your house because they want to talk to you about something, right? And you have a right to not talk to police. And so with that in mind, this has been very transformational to the members, because the members, one of the key things that members repeat over and over again is their level of nervousness is extremely low because they have somebody there with them who understands the law even better than the officer, right? Number two, they don't feel pressured to speak, right? Because they've got the attorney speaking on their behalf.
Let's be real, the cops can't hang up the phone either.
They can try. We do have a security feature that's a PIN, and so unless you literally shut the phone down, the PIN is there so that the member has authorization to end the video with their attorney. If that video is ended in any other way, that's proof that somebody else ended that video, or that video was ended under duress.
Impeding due process, Sixth Amendment. Let me ask you a question. I don't want to cut you up, but it was sitting here floating, and I may lose it in my brain here. The folks out there protected under the Constitution, all the amendments, 14th as well. Any interaction with government, not just law enforcement. So if somebody were to have a child protective services investigator or social worker show up at their house, they could utilize Attorney Shield as well, correct?
Absolutely.
You have a right anytime you're talking to government to have somebody.
Yeah, it's really any type of law enforcement, and so it includes ICE, but it also includes your fishing and wildlife game, officers. It includes Department of safety officers, even for commercial truckers. The attorneys aren't going to be able to help them through a vehicle inspection, and we're looking at a future state of Attorney Shield where we provide those resources in tandem with, but they'll at least, if there's any issue that's related to a violation of your rights, they're there to protect you. What our goal is at the end of the day is safety and lawful investigations. Nobody should be forced or coerced or otherwise to become their own state's witness.
It's
right?
not our job to help them do their job.
It's not our job to help, and look, police have a job to do. Don't get me wrong. And Attorney Shield, like Sean,
it's a tough job.
Yeah, it is a tough job. Attorney Shield, like Sean said, is not anti-police by all stretches of the imagination. We actually have police outreach programs where we send the police jurisdictions videos of what we're trying to do, and that we want a collaborative environment between the citizen and the police officer. And the attorney's job is to facilitate that. But not only facilitate that, facilitate a de-escalated environment where the safety of the officer and the citizen is put at the forefront. Beyond that, it's all about lawful investigations. Don't violate anybody's rights in the course of your investigation, and everybody's going to go home happy, right? Or even if you want to address the guy, everybody's going to go home without there being a violation of somebody's, First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment, right?
And as Sean can attest, it's a hassle to file open public records to get these body cams that they're wearing. So now you actually have your own.
We have our own footage.
It's going to the cloud. It's going to attorney shield. So even if they take your phone, they're not going to take the video.
Right. And I've been in that situation a lot. That's happened to me a lot.
I knew you were going to get there with that.
Because what they could do is, what people don't know, most people don't know, is that if you're arrested, even if it's unlawfully, they can seize your electronics without a court order, just as evidence. They can seize it as evidence and hold it for years. Depending on how long your court case is, they can hold your property, whether it's your cell phone.
And God knows what they do with your data, because they're only supposed to be looking at data that's relevant to what it is if they get into it with a warrant. Right. Even if they get in with a warrant.
Right. That's why that's one of the most important features of Attorney Shield, is that your video is safe in the cloud server, and that way you can access it at any time. And also you have access to, all of our partners that, we're able to. A lot of media won't cover these sort of incidents, and media coverage and bringing attention to injustices is very important. And that's why I am a co-owner of Attorney Shield, and I promise everybody that I will highlight your injustice. I will make sure that it reaches the right people, because that's important.
I'd like to say that police, talk about, the onset of body cams came as a result of, high-profile
Rodney
police
King
brutality incidents, right?
Remember Rodney King, was one of
Rodney King, but even as recent, Tyree Nichols, it was George Floyd, obviously. But here's the deal. Body camming, from a police officer's perspective, or at least from an agency perspective, was all about having their own version of the truth. Because before body cams became ubiquitous, roughly, and it's not really ubiquitous, there's still a long way to go, police were losing lawsuits left and right because the only footage was from the person's mobile phone, right? And the police couldn't corroborate their own story from their perspective. And so one of the underlying sort of drivers behind that is police wanted their own version of the truth, right? Which I think is great, right? But here's the problem we have with that is, how often do you see police officers muting their body cam, right? Even being told,
you catch them when they drive away going, oh, damn. It's still recording, and they've already destroyed the whole thing.
Right. Or they forget to activate the body cam even in the beginning, right? Most police policies are, when you engage the public, you activate your body cam.
It should be on.
How many times have we seen where that did not happen?
Or there was a cloud error, right?
There's that too. We don't have cloud errors with Attorney Shield, but whatever.
You guys are the best. You guys are the best. So let's get into some questions here. We'll round table it a little bit. Going at you, David, and Sean, you can jump in, but I got one specific directly for you too. David, Americans know that they have the right to an attorney. Obviously, we would hope, right? But in all reality, that right usually begins, technically, at least to them, only after arrest. Why did you make it your mission to bring counsel to every person at every moment of police interaction?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Eric. I'm going to tell you what. Here's the deal. I think that we grew up, elementary school, learning civics and whatever, that, you have a right to an attorney after you've been arrested. That's the Miranda. When you're Mirandized, it sort of clarifies that. And most people believe that's the only time you need an attorney. And when you start looking at what the Sixth Amendment actually says, it doesn't guarantee that the state provides you an attorney anytime a police officer is questioning you, right? But if you have an attorney, you have a right to interact with that officer, with that attorney present, and with their guidance, right? So that you don't self-incriminate yourself.
And so, you know what? I want to preface that before you go further, because I like what you're doing, and I'm trying to think as my audience. A lot of people feel that when they say that they don't want to speak, that they're now automatically telling law enforcement that I'm guilty, or if they ask for an attorney. So if they already have Attorney Shield pulled up on their phone before the cop walks over to the car, before the interaction ever occurs, right, Sean? Then they don't even have to ever feel that need or that feeling of saying, oh, I asked for a lawyer. They're looking at I'm guilty. You're already protected one before you get there.
Yeah, so that sort of presumption of guilt runs counter to America itself. We all learn that everyone's innocent until proven guilty by court.
And you know the cops are allowed to lie to you. Let's be realistic.
Oh, yeah, they're allowed to lie. That's part of their...
You're not allowed to lie, but they're allowed to lie to you to get the answer that they want.
That's one of their most effective investigative techniques, is to lie to you, to say that they have something on you that they don't, and then to get you to admit to it, even though they didn't have it in the first place, right? Which is why it's always important to keep your mouth shut. You don't have a conversation with an officer who's investigating you without your attorney present. That's just plain and simple. So get Attorney Shield or not, but do not answer questions. I don't care whether you have it or not.
I mean, Attorney Shield is just I see it honestly as like AAA or car insurance.
It is.
And it is so inexpensive. You're almost, I mean, I don't want to insult viewers and listeners. We have quite a few, in the millions per show. Kind of crazy folks out there. If you're not having this program, we will have a link in the episode, and we'll give out all the information at the end. You need to have this, because, I mean, you never know. It's one of those things like insurance. You have to have it on your car anyway, and maybe you never use it. But this one, you're going to use it, because everybody gets pulled over once in a while. Everybody. Right?
And I think it's important. I think it's my personal favorite feature is I have children, small children. When they grow up, I want them to be protected. We offer family plans.
Yes.
So your child's new to driving, they get pulled over. You know, as soon as they hit the button, it sends their geolocation. It lets the parents know, or your emergency contact, your wife, whoever it may be. It lets them know, hey, they're involved in a police interaction. Here's the geolocation on where they are. So that way you're always up to date on what's going on with your loved ones. I think that's a great feature. Again, I see it the same way. It's his insurance. Hope you never use it, but when you need it, you're going to make sure you're going to want it. So you're going to want to, because law enforcement officers can lie to you. They will lie to you. Yeah, they will lie to you. I've dealt with many times.
I think you've
got a lot of people, and you know, one thing that's really disconcerting to me is that, you know, law enforcement officers, when they pull people over, if a lot of people, including myself, not anymore, but because I've had so many law enforcement interactions, unfortunately, but you're nervous. You're nervous. Your voice is cracking. You're shaking. You're
automatically nervous.
Everything.
Terrifying.
Now the law enforcement officer saying, "Why are you so nervous?" It takes all the way. It takes them all the way. Right. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Those are all questions. Right. Those are all questions designed in order to hem you up. Their job. They want to arrest you. That's their job, is to find some sort of crime. Where are you coming from? Let me see somebody's ID in the car.
You know what else I want to add to that one is another one, and help me out here, Dave. What's the biggest mistake too? You're fumbling your paperwork because you're nervous. So now it becomes another question. Have you been drinking? Where are you coming from? And God forbid you said, I went to dinner. Oh, did you have a drink? It's always one, because most of the time if we go to dinner, you have a drink. But you tell them that, no, it's one drink. Oh, you sure? You always need to have your paperwork easily accessible, so you're not fumbling. Because anything is going to be, it's a precursor to something bad.
So
I say that.
So here's the deal. Let's sort of get into the psychology of the officer first, talking about being nervous. So imagine you're an officer and you're patrolling the interstate at night, and you have to pull somebody over, and you have to get out of your car to approach their vehicle. Talk about being in a situation that'll make somebody nervous. So if they're nervous,
maybe the whole thing, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So if they're nervous and you're nervous, that's a recipe for a misunderstanding of epic proportions, right?
But I like to believe at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home safely. Nobody's out to get anybody.
Right, absolutely. Very rarely, by the way. You know, there are bad guys out there. I'll give you right? You know, but if you're a college student and you're just trying to get home to get your homework done, you're not trying to hurt nobody, right? No. And so with that in mind, it's important that we we deliver mechanisms into that interaction that makes both parties less nervous. I've heard from sheriff's counties where they said, well, at least if somebody puts a phone in my officer's face and it's got their attorney on it, they're probably not going to shoot my officer. That's
right,
what we
yeah, right, because only a fool would do that. Yeah.
Right? And so that's a calming effect. As well, as a member, you don't have to worry about making up a story about why you were speeding. You just let the attorney handle it.
You don't say anything.
Yeah, and in many respects, especially in accident situations, out of all the footage that I've seen, right, that our members have done for traffic accidents per se, anytime the attorney has said to the officer, look, can you give me a moment so I can talk to my client so I can understand what happened, get his version of the story. The officer 100% of the time thus far will honor that and say, well, yeah, that's fine. Let me just see his ID and insurance and I'll go run that while you guys are chatting, right? It's important to have that conversation because even in an auto accident, right, you're there to not only protect your own rights and yourself and keep yourself free and free of, you're there to protect your assets, right? Because, depending on what you admit and say, that can be used against you later on in a civil lawsuit about the accident itself.
And that's something that a lot of shows get out of this. They say anything you say can be used against you in court of law. It will be used against you. It will. And anybody that knows that has taken the oath and gone to any training, that is what it is. Everything you say will. Whether it's relevant or not, it will be in the report. It will be in the body cam footage. It will be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sean, did you have anything to add? Or we're going to move into another question that's still going to involve you anyway, all of it? Or did you want to add a piece to that or no?
No, I think it's really important for people to know their rights because, especially at a traffic stop, because that's where you have the least amount of rights because our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania v. Mims has decided that you are, I'm sure everybody's always seen it, where you have to step out of the vehicle for whatever reason the officer wants and for officer safety. I personally think that it's more safe for the officer for you to stay in your vehicle during a traffic stop. But
I think that's asking for trouble.
Right. But when the officers, what they'll do is, if you give them a little bit of attitude, they want to try and get you up, they want to try and look in your car, they'll say, step out of the vehicle. And a lot of people, and it makes sense, like, why should I have to step out of the vehicle? I should be able to stay here, write me my ticket for the broken taillight, for the speeding, and let's move on. And a lot of people don't realize that you have to, because the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania v. Mims said for officer safety, you have to step out of the vehicle. So many people refuse to step out of the vehicle, and they end up getting arrested over a broken taillight. It all started with a broken taillight. They end up getting arrested, their window broken, etc., because they don't know. But, Attorney Shield, they'll let you know, hey, you step out of the vehicle, I'm going to come with you. I'm going to come with you. You're going to be able to, it's going to be recorded. Don't worry. De-escalate the situation. And a lot of people, just on that reason alone, I'm sure Attorney Shield saves a lot of people from getting arrested. Just on that reason alone.
I'm sure there's going to be more stories as people hear about this. The more
there will be. One thing that point that Sean made is that sometimes we think we know the law, but we don't, right? And that can get you in trouble. And so a lot of people, like Sean said, didn't believe that they needed to get out of the car when requested. And that whole officer safety thing makes that ubiquitous across the United States.
The safety thing does get utilized a lot.
Well, it does. It gets overutilized, obviously, right? But, here's one thing that we tell people in terms of traffic stops. One of the best things you can do, right, is declutter your vehicle. Because at the end of the day, what the officer is trying to do is they're trying to create a reasonable, articulable suspicion that there's something in the car that they need to search for. But if you don't have clutter in your car and you don't have stuff laying around and they can't justify seeing something, you don't have a gun box sitting in the car. They're going to ask you to exit that vehicle.
Folks probably don't understand plain view doctrine. If they can see it and it's in public space, as Sean knows, if it's publicly accessible visibly for a civilian, it's the same for them. So if you leave something on your, you're giving them keep a clean car.
I like to inform the law enforcement officers when I'm looking inside of their vehicles that it's in plain view. I can look inside.
I love it. You can't film in here. Oh yes, you can. Yes, can. Well then tint your windows, but then you'd be breaking the law.
Right. Unless you're a law enforcement officer. I've been pulled over for tinted windows, and I went to the police station. Right.
Remember that one?
Yes, that one. Yes, I've been arrested twice now.
Yeah, but you were using Attorney Shield on one of those, remember, Sean?
Right, because yes, I did use Attorney Shield on one of them. He gave me 4 different tickets. 4 different tickets. He extended the stop to like 40 minutes. I was sitting there.
That was a long stop, and
it was a big mess.
He didn't have. There was no interaction. He just sat in his car and like listened to the radio for 40 minutes.
Yeah, the attorney was like, "This is ridiculous." And then, I went to their police department and I went to where they parked their personal vehicles and I started handing out tint tickets for each and every one of them that have plate covers, tint tickets. I always say it's rules and laws for thee and not for me. When it comes to law enforcement officers, if you're going to pull me over for having my windows tinted, you should follow the same laws. But unfortunately, some of them don't.
Doesn't work that way.
Right. Moving on to number 2, and I guess this goes for both of you guys. Attorney Shield promises a lawyer within 30 seconds, anytime, anywhere in the country. How does that work in practice? And how do you ensure to your members that truly is actual coverage that they are guaranteed?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and this has evolved over time. And so what I'll do is I'll start with the first half of the question. How long? What does reality tell us? Frankly, the average call is picked up in about 12.5 seconds, right? So that's the average pickup time because, the attorneys are staffed, and so they're not sitting there, pleading a case in court and they get a notification and they got to step away and answer Attorney Shield. No, these people are sitting in a professional space, doing what they need to do, waiting for those calls to come in. I will also say that there are instances where there are technical connectivity problems, meaning you're out in the middle of a rural Iowa highway, right? And the connection isn't that great for mobile data. And so in those particular situations, our platform has the ability to do what we call a voice over IP callback to the mobile number. So if the attorney accepts the call and there are network related connectivity problems where they can't get a full visual or audio on the member, they have the ability to basically end that call and then immediately initiate a cellular callback, right? And that allows them to at least be able to communicate with the member. Video is obviously preferred, but at a minimum, if I can at least have a lifeline, that's better than nothing, right? Because we can't control network. Right? And so, with that in mind, the other thing that we're doing,
or like getting in touch with Elon Musk and Starlink.
It kind of is. But if you think about this, one thing that we're really trying to emphasize is number one, again, safety and protection of your rights, right? And so if you think about that, what we know is the first thing we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the situation from escalating. That we make that a priority and a promise.
De-escalation
that we will do everything in our power to keep the situation from escalating. Number 2, we'll do everything in our power to keep your rights from being violated, right? However, if that happens, what are the remedies for that? Something that we'll be releasing soon, we're calling it the Attorney Shield Member Protection Warranty, right? But basically, our job is to guarantee that those things won't happen to you. But what happens if they do and you've got expenses after the fact for that? Let's say that you get pulled over and the officer shows up just 38 hot right out the gate. There's nothing we can do about that. And he opens your door and yanks you out before we can even say a half word, right? In those situations, that's not only excessive force, right? Meaning the force used was not commensurate with the totality of the situation at the time, right? Number 2, they probably violated your rights. Under those circumstances, if you've got to go patch your face up at the ER, go to court, hire an attorney, we want to provide our members a benefit for that they can get reimbursed up to a certain amount per year per member. And so,
and it's something
we're about to launch that program.
Oh, good. And you have partners to help you with that already, or are you still looking for partners on that?
So there's 2 sides of it. One is the financial assistance, right? The financial reimbursement. The other is we're trying to establish other legal partners that actually can co-counsel or refer that out to an attorney within your area so that you can be serviced. And then that money can be reimbursed for whatever it costs you to have to use the attorney. So just keep in mind, it's not always about the attorney's fees. There could be towing, impound fees, and all that other stuff. All of that's included, right? So if your car's got to get towed because they arrested you illegally, frankly,
you're not guilty or dismissed, Sean knows there's bail always involved.
Always involved. Sometimes up to $75,000
I
in my
saw that
case.
one. That's
Ridiculous.
insane. That was insane. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And that's like, and that is literally a fine. That's atrocious. That's a fine.
Yeah, bail is it's gone through some gyrations lately. So if you noticed, most smart attorneys and most people who understand sort of human rights understands that bail is sort of a poor man's tax, right? If you think about it,
I wrote a whole editorial on it,
and it's frankly not fair. So if Dominic
to show up in court and to make sure you show up in court and to ensure that people that are flight risk and who keep public safety and the safety of the individual from hurting himself or somebody else. That's the only reason. Sean, when he got picked up, had zero reason to pay bail other than that was a punishment to him. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, there are certain offenses that you do want some type of bail and whatever, or certain people with flight risk or whatever. But your average kid who got a reckless driving situation and they put him in the pokey, and his reckless driving could have been just failure to signal, for crying out loud.
I mean, some places driving, they make misdemeanors and felonies out of them. So.
That's right, absolutely. And so the deal is that guy shouldn't have to be paying a $100,000 bond to get out of jail.
How about road pirates that have their that have a Visa machine on the side of the road? Pay the ticket right now or go to jail because you're not from the state.
When that happens without the machine, that's called extortion. But that's a different story.
Unbelievable. I mean, Sean, you've been through the gamut, so I'm sure we can do a whole other episode with you about all your stuff. But let's move into number 3, which I think you both will enjoy, and Sean will definitely enjoy. Qualified immunity. For the folks out there, before I get into my question, qualified immunity is when you are a sworn officer. You are given certain immunities from being personally held liable in a civil suit. Technically, the agency is protected under that. If you're acting within the color of law and you're acting within the performance of your duties within the reasonable person standard. There it is, Dave, because that's the word they forget. The reasonable person standard.
Reasonable.
So
reasonable is the line in law.
That's the key. Reasonable person standard, right? Everybody wants to rattle off articulated suspicion and but it's about what would a reasonable person of your intellect, your education, and your background have done in that same situation. And that's key. With that question, qualified immunity shields officers from accountability, while the militarization of law enforcement escalates these routine encounters into some of the most appalling situations. I mean, some of them, I saw one of them that you were at, Sean, I guess they call the local marshals. And they just literally ripped the guy apart on the front lawn, and you were just being interviewed, I think, you and Leroy Investigates. So how does Attorney Shield restore the balance back to the people, but with keeping law enforcement in mind and giving them their due diligence and their ability to do their job safely without militarizing police and extorting police and making people upset?
Yeah, so qualified immunity, let's just sort of make sure that there's clarity on how that's applied in the courts. And this initially was a Supreme Court ruling that basically says if there's not a precedent set for a rights violation under certain conditions that the officer could have been aware of or learned about in advance, then if he happens to violate somebody's rights in the execution of his duties, and that there has been no case law on that situation before, then he gets a little bit of immunity because police are learning too. So just bear with me. How do we deal with that, right? Well, when you have an attorney, so let's just imagine I get stopped. The officer wants to do something that could be construed as violating my rights. And then there's an attorney on the phone saying, officer, you can do this, but if you do, you're violating my...
I would not advise.
If you search this car without, reasonable suspicion that there's something in it that you believe is illegal, then you're violating my client's right. But then he does it anyways, right? The presence of that attorney and their recommendation and them telling the attorney telling that individual what the law is, even if there hasn't been any case law. Now, this is theory, right? But even if there hasn't been any case law,
we got to make some of that. We got to do that.
If you've got an attorney telling you don't do that, you do it anyways, and it turns out to be a rights violation, but with no case law, I believe that we just created another bridge to basically eliminate the qualified immunity.
I think it's got to go. It's anything everywhere. All of us are openly sued. In any job that you have, you can be sued. So what
Right.
makes them any special?
I guess
in any-
the intent was to, keep quote unquote qualified. I think in the decision they said to encourage qualified candidates to take jobs in law enforcement, which law enforcement officers aren't necessarily qualified. It's they're friends with the police chief, they're friends with so and so. The
Are we
union
gonna go
gets them
into
a job.
DEI conversation, Sean.
I'm sorry.
We're going to do a DEI conversation too, or nepotism?
I guess there's DEI in police departments. I think there are. I think there is. I think there is.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, but they get special treatment and things like that. It's supposed to be able to protect.
Let me interrupt you with a great story.
Sure.
My first interview with a law enforcement agency, and the guy was a student in my class, and he was the captain of the police department, going for a degree. And he said, "Hey, man, we're hiring for an officer," and he really liked me, and I helped him. I was studious. In high school, I was not the most studious, but in college, I was. So I helped this guy, and I also knew the borough manager, who was a personal friend of mine of that same town. So I interviewed for the job, and apparently it was my job. I played the game. When I got there, guess what I said? The cop asked, the chief was in the room, and the captain was in my class. The city manager was my personal friend from the Republican Party that I was involved in my whole life. So in the interview, he asked me why, whatever, and I said, I made the biggest mistake of saying, these jobs are hard to get because you're the chief and your son wants a job. You just pick up the next town over and he gets your job. I didn't get the job. I get a phone call from the guy in my class and my friend, the city manager. He's like, "You moron. That chief did the same thing for his kid in the next town over. You had the job, you were hired until you opened your mouth." True story. True story.
Yeah,
Everything happens.
I believe it. Everything happens for a reason, but I believe it. That's what happens.
You ended up going into higher office and getting indicted years later. So, oh well.
So as far as qualified immunity, for split-second decisions, I think that it's warranted. Honestly, for like a split-second, under the pressure, under the gun, literally a decision, it's warranted. But when these officers, especially in my case, when there's time they can go look it up. They can go call people, research, call the city attorney.
We both know your Sergeant Fahey in Connecticut. All right.
Right.
I followed that closely.
Right.
I watched it. You went to the house. You followed the curtilage. You walked up. He had a public address.
Right.
Publicly listed address, right? You didn't do anything illegal. You had a camera in your hand, armed with a camera, and somebody else on camera.
Yeah, cameraman.
Right? You walked the curtilage. You didn't even walk on the lawn. You rang the bell, and then you stepped off the steps and waited for him to have a conversation as a gentleman, as you always do, a de-escalated, respectful conversation.
Right.
He then yelled some vulgarities at you, went back into the home, right? And then came back out brandishing a weapon.
Right.
Come on.
As I was leaving, 50 to 100 feet away from the front door, he has a very long driveway.
In your face.
Is a very long driveway. Yeah, he spat in my face. He brandished a firearm. He threatened me. He said on 911 audio.
This guy, I heard the 911 call. I heard it.
He said on 911 audio he was going to shoot me right now. And instead of, he was a Connecticut State police officer, but the Groton police, the local police showed up, and because he was a trooper, they automatically, well, you should have known that knocking on his door was going to make him upset.
Mailman knocks on his door.
Yeah, that's not reasonable.
UPS knocks on his door. FedEx.
Right. I told him, I said, well, I'm upset sometimes when the solar panel guy knocks on my door every week, but I don't pull out a gun and spit in his face either.
On my door, right?
Right. I don't pull out. Yeah, and the police will knock. Listen, for everybody watching, the police have no problem knocking on your door, going on your curtilage. They don't care.
They're allowed to look in your windows, and they can only walk the walkway. Curtilage.
Right. And even if you have a no trespassing sign, the police are still going to go there. They're not going to care that you have a no trespassing sign. They're just going to walk right by it because no one's going to prosecute them for that. But
I want to preface Dave on something with Fahey on your case. When he went back into the house to get that weapon, that's forethought at that point.
Absolutely.
He had forethought, and the fact that he walked with a misdemeanor, right?
Yeah, disorderly conduct.
If you did that, Sean, and you went back to your car. And you had a legal weapon, right? I don't know if you have a carry permit and tell everybody on here, but
if I was in the same circumstance,
if you went and got out of your car because you didn't need it, but you went back in and got it and verbally told somebody on the phone, "I'm going to kill this guy," that's forethought. That now becomes a first-degree crime. Am I right, Dave?
You can at least qualify the threat thereof.
There's case law in Connecticut. I've done research on it. I'm not an attorney, but for 4 years, I've surrounded myself with the most brilliant attorneys in the Northeast area and around the country, frankly. And I've learned a lot. And there's case law in Connecticut that the threat doesn't have to be made. So he should have been charged in a fair, perfectly unbiased world. He should have been charged with felony threatening. That was
making everything a terroristic threat now, Dave.
Right, because the threat, the prosecutor was
Just like
basically
that,
defending the defendant, which was interesting. But they basically said, well, he didn't make the threat directly to you. Well, that doesn't really matter, because it doesn't matter about the timing of the threat, it's just that the threat
Did
was
you see
made.
the gun, Sean? Did you see it?
Yeah, of course I saw the
Did you
gun.
threaten
I was
him?
very cognizant of the gun. Very cognizant. You know, I don't think if he didn't have a gun, I think that would have ended a lot differently after he spat in my
You know what
face.
better man to me? The second he spat in my face on public curtilage,
He would
when
have
you
killed me, though.
It might have been a different story. And you know, you and I, you're from New York, I'm from Jersey. I'm
Yeah.
surprised.
Hey man, I got self-control. I
have
have something that he does not have, self-control, and I control myself, and I want to expose him to the world. That was one of the most vile and disgusting things, and in any other circumstance, you know, it would have been handled differently. I think any man would handle that differently. You know, you don't spit in another man's face, but right, it's just that's the most vile thing you could do. Even the judge agreed with it. Yeah, that's what I've been told. Everybody tells me.
So I don't want to say what we call those kind of people, a B or a P, right?
Yep, a P.
And that's what he is. That's what he is. And that's probably why Dave and I were talking. That's probably why people like that end up in jobs like that. Because they can't actually be like you, showing up with a camera and be bold and brave. They need that.
He needs to hide behind the badge and the gun and the illusion of his authority over the public. And instead of saying, and that's the problem with law enforcement, is that they get these jobs and they forget where they came from. They forget that they forget that oath that they swore to uphold our constitutional rights.
Prior, most.
Right. Or he was arrested. That particular officer was arrested before he became a state trooper for selling drugs. Now he never was. Right, but listen. He wasn't prosecuted for it, and that's fine. But again, they make all these claims. I've seen video of him assaulting other people while a law enforcement officer. I've had sources tell me that he has sold drugs and planted drugs on people in the New London Police Department. So there's a lot of criminality with this officer, but he gets away with it every single time, even this time.
Money on arrest? Is that what it is? Is that what it is, Dave? Is he making? Are they making? Is that what it is? Is it is it the almighty dollar over our freedom?
Well, you know,
I don't see our tax numbers going down.
And we can talk about this as a sort of separate topic one day. But you know, if anybody tries to tell you that police don't have citation and arrest quotas, they're lying to you, right? They're called departmental standards, right?
Yeah, because if you're out for 8 hours and did nothing, they're going to ask you what you did.
Right, absolutely. Here's the deal. The deal is one of the most oppressed communities is one that is lawful, meaning the police are going to really have to sort of police really hard and deep and even make stuff up in order to meet their quotas. And really, it should never be a fishing expedition or a hunting mission to be a police officer, right? The other thing, let's go back to Faye, right? Look, he would not have a platform nor a job if police policed their own at the end of the day, right? The deal is that blue line can be really thick. And all I mean by that is that professional courtesy is one thing. Oh, slow it down a little bit. You were going 5 miles over the speed limit.
You got a family member card or whatever. My mom.
Right. Yeah. But professional courtesy should not extend to the fact that you're watching your partner beat down a citizen for no reason and you're not going to stop them or do anything about it. But unfortunately, we see this all the time, and there's very little accountability. And police will admit that they will tolerate a lot from their coworkers.
Right? Good cops don't want these guys around.
Right. No, but good cops are hamstrung. So here's the deal: good cops will be retaliated.
They get a bad name if they let people out too. They get a bad name.
You know, I have a bunch of sources that are cops, a bunch of friends of mine that are cops all across the country, and they will tell me that, you know, if I were to speak up, it's really about the leadership of the department.
It's the leadership.
It comes down from who is at the top of the department and who's setting the standard for that department. Because if the standard is covering for your brothers and sisters in blue instead of for protecting the public, then the law enforcement officer won't, quote, snitch on another law enforcement officer and tell on him, which is his obligation to do. Because there's a lot of good law enforcement officers out there, but if you're allowing other law enforcement officers to violate people's...
not the thin blue line.
Right, exactly. And like David was saying, you know, they do have some quotas. They don't call it quotas. They call it standards. And, you know, it's always to send this sort of message to the city council or the town council that we need more law enforcement officers. Look, we're doing such a good job, but we could do even better if we get more law enforcement officers. We can do more things, and they hire more and more law enforcement officers. Some of these budgets on the Nassau County, where I'm from, on Long Island, there's
You
budgets for
have
these
some
law
terrible
enforcement officers,
experience with those guys. You've had some rough.
huge budgets.
Aren't they the
Nassau
highest
County is
paid
one
in
of the
the
worst
country?
departments.
They're the highest
Right.
paid.
There are officers making more than the president of the United States in Nassau
Yeah.
County. Sergeants, just regular sergeants making more with overtime and everything else. And that's why I went to Fahey's residence to ask him about this overtime scandal
Beautiful
where
house
he's a
he has, by
desk
the way.
sergeant. Right.
Beautiful
He's a
house.
desk sergeant and he's making 90 grand a year in overtime.
119 grand over in overtime extra, right? Or 109 in overtime?
Yeah. And every year. That's money. That's our money, people.
9 to 5 desk guy.
A 9 to 5 desk job.
I got another one that I followed you on, and I want you to comment on it. I'm sure Dave's going to like it. I watched you go up to New York State Prison. Tell that story about what they did to that inmate. And then you said about the leadership. The guy came out and was rough handling you. And it was proof that leadership in itself, the way he handled you, was proof.
Yeah, I've covered that story. I was at the arraignment in the jury pool box, in the press box, covering the arraignment of those despicable correctional officers where, if you haven't seen it, they killed a man on camera. They didn't know their body camera was on.
Because they got listeners and viewers, so give it like 2 seconds.
Yeah, so they were, they got from the beatdown squad. They have beatdown squads in upstate correctional facilities, and they took this man's life, and they were charged for it. They didn't know their body cameras were on, and I went to those correctional facilities that engage in this kind of behavior.
Too, right? In the hospital.
Right. Yeah, in the infirmary, and the nurse.
This medical professional sworn under Hippocratic oath
that are watching this and smiling and not. This was like a common. The scariest part about it was the reaction or lack thereof of everybody involved in that scene was, this is normal. Like you would think that they'd be like, what's going on here?
Right, Sean. You're right. The fish rots from the head, right? And what I'm getting at there is that if the leadership allows that level, that type of culture, right? And the deal is frankly, if that culture exists, it's the leadership's fault, right? And so as CEO of Attorney Shield, I set the culture for my organization. As president of the United States, the president sets the culture and the priorities for the country, right? And if that ain't working out, it tells you what the president's priorities are. It tells you what the head is thinking, what the body does, right? And so in these departments where corruption runs rampant, police officers are lying and falsifying reports. Police officers are getting DUIs on the weekend and still going back into the office on Monday. Police officers are beating down their spouses, but nobody sort of allows that to be sort of brought to light, right? That's a leadership cultural problem all day long, and unfortunately too many departments suffer with that endemic problem. The public suffers as a result.
You know what, I think there was a key preface to that, and I'm going to give them a little credit. It's a hard job. Nobody is perfect. Everybody has made mistakes. Everybody's done something they shouldn't do. Second chances, even third and fourth chances sometimes are acceptable to get somebody to be hired somewhere. That's okay, and I think that has to be remembered.
Yeah, I'm going to play on your experience, though. I'm going to play on your experience as a former soldier in military police, right? And so in my time I was in a Florida National Guard for a while. No, this was the reserves. I was in a military police unit, right? And I dealt with military police on bases whenever I was, activated and such, right? But at the end of the day, if you think about the culture of military police and how they police a base, those guys have greater powers to search and frisk and do all kind of crazy things because you're on federal property. But guess what? They don't exercise that in mass, right? You tell me the last time you've gone onto a military facility and you've been subject to sort of, a stop and frisk, if you will. It just doesn't happen. They use their power respectfully, and they use it judiciously, right? And at the end of the day, as a former soldier myself, right, I know that I had plenty of opportunities to stray from, oath to the Constitution. Did that ever happen? Absolutely not, right? I did my job. And at the end of the day, the job of a soldier or of a Marine or an airman, those jobs are hard too. But those guys execute on those jobs every day without scandal, without harming other people, without, whatever, right? And so what excuse do we want to continue to make for police officers? Yes, the job's hard. Yes, it requires.
And don't forget too, Dave, that they're making motor vehicle stops. A military base is a city. You have a movie theater, you have restaurants, you have shopping centers, you have people living there, you got domestic violence calls, you got everything, you got kids. It is everything that's going on in the community inside, and everybody's got power, right? The big joke is like when you get a young private brand new to a base and he pulls over a 2-star general, general's still got to turn over his license and registration.
That's right. And
he will.
argument.
He won't be like the police chief. He won't be like the police. Do you know who I am?
Do you know?
Right.
In the military,
I know no base commander, captain, general, whatever you want to call it, whatever branch you're in, who would ever pull that mess, because if they pulled that mess in that
the game's over. Your career's done.
They're gone.
Your career's done. Yeah. All you need is that to get back. You need to hire up to get that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I didn't know. I didn't know you were a brother in arms. So let's move into something interesting. We're going to talk about a Supreme Court decision. Noam v. Vasquez. U.S. Supreme Court, Noam v. Vasquez is allowing sweeping immigration stops based on broad factors such as language and location. Basically, I guess to you, Dave, and then a follow-up to you, Sean. What does that ruling say about the urgency of real-time legal counsel for our citizens?
Yeah, the first thing it says is it basically hints. So the court sort of showed their cards, right? They haven't made a final ruling on the matter, but they showed their cards that it may be the court acceptable to establish, reasonable articulable suspicion just by looking at somebody and listening to the language they speak.
Are we getting back to racial profiling?
Or if they've got tattoos, right? You automatically assume that if they're, let's say, Latino and they've got tattoos, the government's on this MS-13 thing, in which I don't think anybody really knows what that is anyways, but whatever the case, MS-13, right? That gives police license to stop and question that person just based on tattoos and their ethnic appearance, right?
And so Sean, you do have a little bit of brown color on you, buddy. We don't want to see.
I do. My family is from Puerto Rico, which is, for those who don't know, is part of the United States. A colony of the United States.
I do an audit there once, actually. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So that ruling is especially concerning for myself, because I do speak Spanish, not fluently. Yeah, I do speak Spanish, not fluently. I learned at a very late age in life, but my family members are bilingual. They speak English and Spanish. We love our country. We're proud Americans. And, I love the people in our country, Hispanics, blacks, whites, whatever it is. We're all American. So
keep a shirt and hat every day. Come on.
Every day. Every day. I get out of bed looking like this. So, at the end of the day, it's very concerning that just because of how I look and a language that I might be speaking at the time. And, I will say, in other parts of the world, speaking other languages is actually very common. They know multiple languages. It's just United States, it's kind of like, well, if you're only supposed to know English, that's the only language you're supposed to know. If you know more, that's bad.
And actually, only this year, English became the actual language, national language. It never was.
That doesn't change it becoming the most spoken language by 2050, but whatever.
I mean,
and at the end of the day, I don't see how we could, honestly, I speak English obviously every single day. My children, they speak Spanish because I want them to learn Spanish first and then learn English later. But when they go to school, so they could be bilingual like myself. But, we have territories in the United States that speak Spanish. Puerto Rico, I've gone there many times on vacation. Beautiful island. I encourage anybody to go visit Puerto Rico. It's actually very beautiful. Okay, yeah, we can go. We can go on a nice little yacht thing to Culebra. It's a very beautiful island. Blue water.
We'll audit while we're there. We'll audit.
Oh, yeah, we'll audit. The Constitution's good in Puerto Rico as of right now. I don't know where the Constitution's going to be in the next couple of years. I don't know, but
maybe we could do
especially
an
we could go to. I want to go to Alaska. I think that would be interesting. I went to Hawaii.
I'd like to say something about Alaska.
What's that? Go for it.
Alaska is sort of almost still the frontier, if you think.
The last frontier, right?
Yeah, and if you think about it, police get away with a lot up there because, frankly, the people that they pick on are generally natives, right? And natives don't really get a say. They get ignored. They've been ignored. They've been sort of their minority. And so the deal is that we don't have a lot of members in Alaska, but we got a handful. But we get a lot of reports out of Alaska of police brutality that never gets solved.
Sean, are we going to go do an audit?
Yeah, and so
we'll do an audit in Alaska, man. We could go anywhere. Anywhere the Constitution protects me, I will go. I have no problem with it. Listen. I actually hope. I'm gonna go stand outside of a Home Depot, and I want to go stand out there, and I'm gonna speak Spanish and wear blue jeans and a t-shirt, and I want to see what happens to me. No, because listen,
overalls and bring a pickup truck and pick you up.
There you go. There you go. And we'll see. We'll see what happens to us. Because again, I'm all for immigration reform. We could work on it. It's definitely an issue that we need to work on. But to pick up, if you're going to pick me up, a proud American, outside of a Home Depot, we have a problem in this country because I have rights. Everybody in this country, it says persons, right? It doesn't say citizens. It says persons, and it says persons for a reason.
Property, person,
right?
Yeah.
It says persons. Doesn't say
You
citizens.
do have to admit, all three of us, I think a reasonable event. We do have an immigration crisis.
Right,
we had a wide open border for a long time.
Listen, I am all for securing a border. I am all for enforcing the rule of law. Again, but you can do that. You can secure a border and enforce rule of law without hampering my rights. You are taking away everybody's rights, because if they can make this where they can, based on your language, skin color, based on your appearance, based on your tattoos, which by the way, law enforcement officers, a lot of them have tattoos, thin blue line tattoos and everything else.
You can tell all their biases and everything on their arms. I think that's I think that's a problem, because you can see everything about them and their biases and their feelings on their arms.
You know, to put a capstone on that whole ruling, look, the verdict's still out in terms of where that goes, right? Because right now, ICE has license to profile, all right? At the end of the day, let's just call it what it is. They have a license to profile. To me, what I'd hate to see is that expand in terms of the courts allowing even local and state law enforcement to do the same or
wear masks, or it would be very concerning to me that all law enforcement officers in this country, it should concern every American who loves freedom, who wants a government accountability, for law enforcement officers to wear masks. I don't care if they're ICE, FBI, local law enforcement, sheriffs, whatever they are.
Threatened as an individual, and they're actually just doing their job.
I've been, for those of you who haven't watched any of my videos, I have been subject to men with masks before, law enforcement officers who came to my house with masks trying to kidnap me on the orders of their police commissioner. So this is a very real. Why would you wear a mask? Do judges wear masks? What is next? A judge is going to wear a mask for their safety. Prosecutors, military, everybody's just going to start wearing masks. But yet in Nassau County, where I'm, one of the counties of my bordering county, they actually made it illegal for citizens to wear masks to hide their identity. You can. What I did.
I remember COVID, a whole different story on that.
Right. They made it illegal to wear a mask to cover your face to protect your identity. So what I did is I wore a ski mask to a public meeting in that same county, and I spoke to them with the ski mask on, and I wasn't arrested, but it is a misdemeanor. But again, they won't arrest me because they know the consequences that come with it, but they will arrest anyone else. And that's a problem. That's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for everyone's rights. I'm fighting for everybody in this country's rights, because it's we the people. It's supposed to be our government. We are being extorted with tax dollars, federal, state, local, sales tax, gas tax, everything. We are being extorted.
Eggs anymore.
We are being extorted, and the rich keep getting richer. And you know what I always say on my channel? It's not about left and right. It's about up and down. And I will say that over and over and over again. It is, and this is not new to America. This is not new to the United States of America. This is since the beginning of time. It's the haves versus the have-nots. And unfortunately, the haves have gotten a lot more, and the have-nots have gotten a lot less.
The separation is getting bigger. So
separation. The first billionaire was Rockefeller, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And ever since then, I believe that was like, the 1928, something like that. And ever since then, now there's about like 6,000 billionaires. It's growing exponentially. But yet people are still poor.
You want to see my thing I got coming out, and I started a campaign against on CVS. The CEO of CVS, it's off topic, but you guys might be interested to know, especially being a veteran. You know what the Mission Act is, right? The VA Mission Act.
I do.
So if you're a disabled veteran, based on whatever percentage you are, but let's just say it doesn't matter what percent you are, you're still covered under the Mission Act. So CVS is partnered with the Mission Act. According to the Mission Act, they're supposed to treat and provide the prescription. If there is a copay, then the VA collects the copay from the member. It happened to me personally, and I was fortunate enough to pay for it. I've called out the CEO. He makes $17.8 million a year. He made my wife pay for life-saving prescriptions out of pocket, embarrassing her at the counter, when indeed, number one, I don't have a copay at my tier. But if I did, and you can attest, Dave, that the VA will recoup it from me. We don't pay at the counter. So I called them out publicly on it, 17.8 million, and they told my wife, and I know this is happening to other veterans that can't afford, that are deciding between eggs and rent and life-saving meds, and you're saying, I gotta wait to get reimbursed from the VA, but you can make 17.8 million. So I've been calling it out on every show. I thought I'd just get a quick idea of what you guys thought of that, since we were talking about.
There's definitely an affordability crisis in our country, for sure.
If I can say something about how law enforcement frankly serves power, not the people, right? And so power trickles down. And so you may have all these billionaires at the top, and these billionaires have the resources to influence politics through PACs and other donations to basically elect the people who are going to support their interests. And then that trickles all the way down to the local level. And so at the end of the day, let's look at my origin story for Attorney Shield again. There's a guy in the airport who needed empathy, comforting, and needed to get home to his family, right? Who did the police come to the terminal to serve? They didn't come to serve him as a citizen who was in need of support. Right? They came to serve the interest of the airport itself against this guy who was harming nobody.
And if you had just approached it with a nice conversation, somebody could have pulled him aside privately, found out what was up, went over to the gate and said, hey, this guy's suffering. Maybe they could have bumped him to first class, something easy. It's not a big deal, right? It's not a big deal, Dave. We're not talking rocket science here.
No, but they gave this guy a criminal record for being upset that his dad
never got home.
This guy didn't deserve an arrest, a busted nose, and embarrassment at the airport, right? And a lasting criminal record, of which I hope got dismissed, but I don't know. Right? He didn't deserve that because he was emotionally upset about a family member. He didn't deserve that. And we failed him.
I want to focus on that, because what you said about the record may be cleared. The internet is another story. We all know the news has a great headline, and the retraction is about one sentence big on page 5. And to get those things fixed, that breaks the budget for most people, and that ends people's ability to get jobs. Horrible thing. How do we combat that?
There's a direct correlation. So here's the deal. I want to just speak to some general stats about criminality in the United States, and it's less about criminality, it's more about the policing tactics. But if you think about it, there is no way that there's more criminals in the United States than there are in all other Western nations, but we lead all other Western nations in incarceration. We are literally fourth in the world behind countries like El Salvador and Rwanda and such, right? It makes no sense.
Let's not even talk about minorities in the system, because I've written on that. I served on that committee.
Right, absolutely. But if you think about it, if Louisiana was carved out as its own country, they would be number 1 in the world, right? Wow. Think about that. Now, the other thing is 1 in 3 American adults have an arrest record at least. How is that, right? And so you mean to tell me one of every 3 Americans I meet are going to have an arrest record? That stat doesn't exist in other Western nations, right? And so
how about
we got to ask ourselves, why are we so
like in New York or New Jersey? A traffic infraction, you go down south, it becomes a misdemeanor or a felony.
Right, and that's listen, and people
classify that and feel good about that, knowing you can go back to another state and it's a traffic.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe that in some states that it is a misdemeanor to speed or your blinker. I believe what is in Texas, your blinker is not using your blinker is a misdemeanor. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Or do they got the super speeder law?
Again, all these non-violent crimes, quote unquote crimes that people are committing, these non-violent crimes.
They're infractions.
Just right. They're infractions, and they should be treated as such. And you shouldn't go on fishing expeditions. You shouldn't be telling, if somebody's brake light is out, why not just be a good public servant? And this is, I spoke at a public meeting the other day, and I called the mayor a coward because I served him with a defamation lawsuit.
What town?
It was Melbourne, Florida. Okay. So I was in Melbourne, and the mayor of Melbourne, he's doing a lot of egregious, he's engaged activities that his family had reached out to me. So I'm exposing it. He had made a post that I had sent him death threats. So I served him with a defamation lawsuit at the next public meeting. He said, because I'm a defendant in the lawsuit, I'm going to walk away from this public meeting. And he leaves the public meeting. So when I went up to speak, I said, well, I didn't know the mayor was going to be a coward. Right. I said, I didn't know the mayor was going to be a coward and run away from a public comment section of a public meeting. And one of the council members said, you cannot You cannot attack us like that. And I was like,
Really?
I can criticize you all I want. You are a tyrant and a coward as well. How about that? And I told him, because I want people, when they watch my videos, I want people to be emboldened to, we get worse treatment by public servants who take all of our money from us. What if a Walmart door greeter treated you that way? What would happen to them? They would be fired immediately if they talked to you any sort of way. They would be fired immediately.
Check your receipts at Walmart on the way out, Dave. They're not allowed.
Right.
They're not a club like.
No, I walk right by. I say, "Have a nice day," and I walk by.
Yeah, nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah, not because I care, but listen, let me be clear. Not because I care. It's just because why am I going to waste my time waiting in a line to show you my receipt when I just spent money at your store? Like, I just spent $100 at your store. I should at least be able to leave in an efficient manner.
Where you got to do all the work,
right?
And then they're going to.
Yeah, I rang up my own groceries.
We got to check ourselves now. Right, and the price went up. Yeah,
and now I gotta wait in this long line to show you my receipt so you can make sure I didn't steal anything. I just walk right around them, because again, it's not about. It's just a hassle to me. And why am I going to be hassled after I just spent money at your store?
Yeah, but guys, this goes back to when the police show up to those incidents. They're serving Walmart. They're not serving the public or the truth.
You know what, Dave? Right? Moving to what you're saying, and Sean, it's because we've allowed it to get this far, and we keep along, and because of you, Sean, and you, Dave. And I like to believe me that, but not like it. You guys, you're really out there. I'm sitting here, but I want to be out there with you, Sean. Please have me out there.
I'd love to take you along. I'd love to take you along.
I want to. I seriously do. Because of people like you, you're saying, okay, we got to pull back that rein. Because the more you give an inch, take a mile, take a yard, take a prison sentence for something you didn't do.
That's what I'm telling people. It's all good to respect the police. It's all good to think highly of police officers. I don't care if law enforcement officers get paid a good salary. That's fine. That's not my. It's the abuse, right? It's the abuse of overtime. It's the abuse of their authority. It's the public thinking that law enforcement officers are all heroes that are up on some sort of pedestal. They're not slaves, but they're definitely not. They're not like Jesus. Like, they need to be held accountable. I tell them to their face, you're a public servant. Learn your place.
I love when and they get so mad. I'm not a
you are a public servant.
You use it with class, Sean. I love it. Right. I love it the way you use it because you know it's the punch, but you said it with such class, and you know it gets under the skin. But there's nothing.
And I let them know. Listen, and I let them know. I tell my audience this all the time. Public servant is not a derogatory term. Let's be clear here. It is not a derogatory term. It's an honor to be a public servant, right? It should be an honor.
And the other people, I'm going to stand up. It's an honor.
Right. I don't know. One day I hope to get into public service. Maybe I'll be the town supervisor where I'm from one day or something.
That, Dave,
and I will call myself. I'll put a name tag that says public servant, and I'll live stream my entire day.
We should run on as a campaign ticket. The servants. We should do it.
Public servants, right. So,
Sean, I got a question for you. Sean, your work has made you one of the most visible, and I mean that. I like you a lot. You are the most visible, the most courteous, respectful of all, by far, most eloquently spoken out there. Auditors in America. So what drives you to put yourself on the front line and against government power? And, as a father myself, you have children. Do you not fear sometimes? I know you do. I know you're doing because you're making it better for them, but do you also fear a little?
Yeah, so it's really hard. Honestly, it's hard because, at the same time, people use this as a criticism of me a lot, is that, you're making money doing what you're doing. But again, as I just said, I have no problem with law enforcement officers making six figures. I have no problem with judges making money, prosecutors. Everybody makes money in their job. My job just happens to be, I'm traveling, I have expenses, I travel the country, right? Hotels, flights, rental cars. I have a rental car right next to me.
Sean, tell them how they can donate to help support what you're doing.
So it's all in the description of my of any of one of my videos on YouTube, everything. Long Island Audit on YouTube, and any description or the about section of my channel, you can donate to the cause. But I want to say that this.
And plug your attorney from New York.
Oh, and my great attorney, Jacob Uriel. He's out of Brooklyn. He practices in New York. He's barred in New York and New Jersey. Jacob Uriel. He's a great guy. He's very intelligent, and he's a former prosecutor, now criminal defense attorney, and he's on the side of the people. And there are not a lot of attorneys that are on the side of the people. A lot of attorneys, especially public defenders.
When you had that issue,
right? He will fight.
Was it Yonkers station?
I believe it was Nassau. NYPD, right? NYPD.
He's great.
Yep, NYPD.
I would love to have him as a guest.
He is a fighter. I'm sure he would love to come on. He is a fighter. He's very intelligent. One of the most. He is a close friend of mine. He's one of my best friends at this
Yeah,
point.
I think he was great speaking for you. Yeah.
He's a great individual and a ferocious attorney. A lot of attorneys, they like to play by the little rules and be courteous, and he will get right down to it and say, hey, listen, you're violating my client's rights. Let's go to trial tomorrow if you want. Let's do it. Let's get it, because
Hey,
he's
Sean, I
a
got
fighter.
something that's not in my notes right now for you that came to my mind. And Dave, let me know what
Yeah.
your thought is. Why don't we call on somebody to appoint you as a constable or reserve officer? Would you do it voluntarily to get out there to feel the job and to show them how honoring your oath is? Would you do it?
Was that a question for me?
Either one of you guys, but Sean specifically, because he's always finding himself jacked up.
So listen. I've gone on ride-alongs. Yeah. I've gone on ride-alongs with law enforcement. I've worked with departments. I've done multiple ride-alongs with departments. Listen. I have seen. My friends are law enforcement officers that they tell me about the job. I'm very well familiar with the job, and I'm very well familiar with the.
If some chief came up to you and said, "Hey, help us out,"
I would have no problem helping them. I would do another ride along. I would do a training with them. I've been in command staff meetings. I've done it all before. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to be in a lot of these predicaments. But to answer your question about why I do it, not only for the future of my children, I want to create a legacy where one man, I'm just one man. One man can just stand up and make a difference. I never thought 4 years ago I'd be where I am today as far as the change that I've made in this country and the people. We just did an audit convention in Pensacola, Florida, and I met hundreds of people who have watched me from all across the country, and not only across the country, the world. They have been so inspired by what I do to pick up a camera, to educate themselves on the law. And that their inspiration really drives me. And to see the change I'm making within law enforcement, the emails I get, hey, I'm in law enforcement, I love which is a lot of support. But it does scare me, because it does scare me at times for my children, my family, when my wife is a Venezuelan immigrant. She came here from Venezuela. She came here legally. My wife is my hero. If anybody ever asks me who's my hero, it's my wife. She fought tyranny, literal tyranny in Venezuela. She was out there on the front lines protesting, and because of that, she was arrested for terrorism charges, all these trumped up charges, spent 30 days in a gulag. We think our prisons are bad. Those prisons are even worse. And my wife came here to seek asylum, and she did it all the right way, and she is a true hero. And I am scared. And when those mass law enforcement officers came to my home, she came to the freest country in the world, right? Apparently. He was terrified to see on our security camera footage 2 law enforcement officers with masks.
I saw that footage, John. It was pretty rough.
Right, coming. So it traumatized my wife. Luckily, my children are little, so they didn't know what was going on. But I worry for the world that my children are going to grow up in. I worry for that. I want to make a better world for them. I want them to understand. I want them to have good relationships with law enforcement officers. I'm not disrespectful to the police, as you know. It's not about. Listen, and I support people's right to disrespect police. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't. If you want to disrespect the police, that's your right. I don't think it's going to accomplish anything, but it's your right to do that. And I will support that right to do that. I'm trying to create change from the inside. I'm trying to bring over people so that way they can really understand this isn't about us versus them. We're all together. We the people, we're supposed to be together. This is all of our rights. This is our country. And we need to come back and take it back from the people who think that they have power over us.
Yeah, and so, when you think about taking it back, I just want to say something, guys, and this is just will level set the seriousness in the uphill battle that we have, and it's certainly possible, but it's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require a lot of people getting involved. Here's how, I'm a student of history, and so here's how governments work, right? Something happens and they take a little bit of your power, you lose a few rights, but you give it up a little bit because you feel safer. I don't know, right? You think about the Patriot Act, whatever, right? And so, we get coaxed every now and then into giving up more and more rights. And in this environment now, we're actually it's being forced upon us and we're being told to suck it up and get used to it. Here's the reality is, we do have to take back these rights, right? I mean, both from a privacy perspective, from a not feeling free from, being detained by police when we haven't committed a crime, so on and so forth, being able to say what we want to say that's protected by the First Amendment, right? And being able to own a weapon if you're a citizen, which is protected by the Second Amendment, and that not being licensed for cops or police to treat you like a criminal and a suspect just because you have a weapon, right? That's not fair. It's not American. It's anti-American. Here's the deal, though. Here's what we know is the more power government claws away from its people, They don't give that back willingly.
Never get it back. It's like taxes.
They say, you know what, we got too much. We took it a bit far. Get rid of these laws.
Every time they do a special taxes, I tell people in New Jersey they created the parkway and they tolls on the parkway to build the parkway, yet they've never taken them away.
Right, absolutely. You never get that back willingly. You have to fight for it, right?
Yeah.
And so
we can only do it together. We can only do it together.
Team,
Yeah.
right.
What Sean's doing is a fight. What Attorney Shield's doing with its community and its members is a fight. Our attorneys are at the forefront of that. We don't get these rights back that have already been usurped from us by the government. We don't get them back because the government wakes up one day and wants to play nice, right? Frankly, it's going to get worse before it gets any better, but this is the fight we have to be up to, right? Otherwise, we might as well just lay down and, take it.
Hey, you might as well just become North Korea.
Right. And I refuse, as long as I have breath in my lungs, as long as I have energy to stand up and walk and go across this country, I will go across this country. And again, it's not only about exposing bad government actors and law enforcement officers. It's about changing the mind of the people. That's what this is about for me. I am trying to change the mind of the people because, we're all in our phones. We're all just on TikTok and everything else. Mind and you're brainwashed, and they didn't teach you anything about business in school, about how to be successful. They taught you how to punch a clock and go 9 to 5 and work for the elites. That's what they taught you.
A whole different subject.
Is what you're also doing too is they would see this, and I see it. I hold a Master of Public Administration as well, so I understand the government process as well on top of my law degree. You're helping people understand the trials and tribulations and the job that these people in bureaucracy have to deal with. So you're educating not only them on their oath, but you're educating the public on the stressors of what they have to do. And if they will only recognize that it's a two-way fair street, everybody learns, we would be in a better place. Right. And I think that's what they fight you when you get there. But they should say, hey, look at how much work I'm doing with one person here. That's a part that's left out.
I'm one person out here on the field. Hopefully when you come join me, we'll be two. David, I know you're busy over there, but I'd love to.
I'll be willing to come out too, right? Look, this is
great,
guys.
But listen, it's not just me though. It's millions of people that support me that are able. The one reason why the government can't defeat me, these local agencies and the district attorney's offices, and that I've been arrested 13 times with 0 criminal convictions in all those 13 times, is because the people have my back financially. The people have my back. They make phone calls. It's a strong community. So what municipalities do is that the process is the punishment, because now you have to hire an attorney. As you know, they're very expensive. Your bail, your attorney, everything, right? You might lose your job now. So this is my job.
In the news, and you never get that. Yeah.
Right. This is my job. I love to be in the news, so it's fine. You can put me in the news all you want. It's great. This is my job. I am my own boss. And the only people I answer to are my viewers, my supporters. And if they're supporting what I'm doing, and if they are united with me, and I tell them all the time, I can't do it without you, or else they would just financially ruin me at that point. Yeah, it's kind of like they try and take me down, but I just keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as they're trying to take me down.
You were forced to do a karaoke this weekend, and you sang Sinatra. And kick down to the ground and getting back up again, right? Down and out.
Yeah. So as well, during the audit, and I plan on doing another. I want to do like a convention, like a We the People convention, We the People Summit. I want to get hundreds of people on at a venue. Attorney Shield. We could put it nice and big in the summit, and we can maybe give out some memberships. I want to bring hundreds of people together on Long Island because I'm tired of traveling, so you got to come to me. But I want to do it on Long Island. I want people to come together from all over the country, and we can exchange ideas. We can just have some camaraderie with each other, and realize that. And it was great. I loved it. We did something on a smaller scale a couple days ago, and I loved every minute of it. And we ought to be united in this country. We really do.
Well, I got about 3 more things for you, basically. To kind of circle this out, because I know you're in Mississippi and you're about to.
I am in Mississippi right now. Yeah, and I do have a meeting with my attorney at 2:00.
We'll be done in a minute. Where are you going to audit after this?
I will be in Mississippi. I will be. Oh, this isn't live, so I can just tell you.
It won't air till later.
I'll be going because I don't want them preparing for me. I'll be. I'll be going to a county. I forget which county courthouse. It was a county complex, I believe, in I forget exactly where, but it's the Bayou, Louisiana, Mississippi, and then I'll be heading over to New Orleans.
But whatever footage you get tonight, if it is good, bad, or ugly, you reach and send it to me. I can get it up into this show when this show goes live. Be like, hey, this just happened a few minutes ago. I don't want to hold you too much longer, so I'm going to kind of give you these couple questions here, and I'm going to get you guys back another day.
Yep, I will. I'm glad to come back.
Investigations and other people and your attorney. I want to talk to some more people. You mentioned, and this for both of you guys, about honoring your oath is important and stuff, but explain to the people, both of you guys, what is the difference between pushing back and having respect?
I'll take that because
we're not charging people out there to go kick public doors down.
We train our attorneys on this, and so what we speak to is what we call a collaborative environment, right? Where you respect me, I'll respect you. We all know what respect feels like, and we all know what disrespect feels like, right? And so at the end of the day, we should be able to have an interaction with a police officer where they're investigating some wrongdoing without the thing flying off the rails and everybody cussing at one another. It's inappropriate, it's unprofessional, and it's counterproductive. And at the end of the day, what I want to say to members or those of the general public, if you think that you're going to win by escalating a scenario with a police officer, you're wrong. You may win in the long run, but you're going to suffer a devastating blow that evening or that afternoon or that night because they will take you down and they will win, right? And there's no escaping that in the moment. You may get remedies
even
later
with attorney shield on the line.
Right, absolutely. And so at the end of the day, if you think about it, the difference between a good traffic stop and a bad traffic stop all boils down to how people treat one another, right? And so if that officer, it can be given a reason to think that you're less than a lawful individual by the way you react, your defensiveness, the movement of your hands, and that makes him nervous, guess what? He's going to win that battle in the short run, and you're going to lose, right? And so to me, it's not hard to basically just say, look, officer, here's my ID, here's my insurance, here's my registration, and then shut your mouth. And if he's asking you where you're coming from, where you're going, say, officer, I don't answer questions without my attorney. And if you have attorney shield, the attorney shield attorney will take that on for you, right? You don't even have to say anything, right? And so at the end of the day, you can be respectful and say, I don't answer questions, or I don't want to answer your questions, or at the advice of my mom or my dad or my attorney or whatever, I don't answer questions, right? Now, if they keep badgering you, that becomes problematic, right? But the same thing as it relates to
they do.
They say, well, what if I search your car? What's your answer to that, right? Of course I mind, but most people say, oh, no, I don't mind, right? And so at the end of the day, what you want to do is you got to hold your ground. And this is something Sean understands extremely well. The deal is that you know how things work. If you give a person an inch, they'll take a mile, right? And so as soon as you think that answering questions and being nice and being cordial is going to save you from a ticket or save you from an arrest, you're absolutely wrong. Because at the end of the day, that officer's intent on being nice in the moment is to get you comfortable enough to say something that they didn't know already, but now they know, and they get to dig deeper.
And throwing cum in the water. So my last question goes to both of you guys, and then we're gonna wrap it up. And this goes to both of you guys. Mainstream media often ignores these kinds of abuses. But clearly, they've been documented. We all know that. I've watched a lot of your stuff, Sean. I really do. So do you both believe citizen journalism has become the frontline truth in America? And this is for both of you guys, and that's where we're going to end it. And then I'll let you both end it, whatever you want to say after that.
Yeah, all right. So I'll take this. As a citizen journalist, as an independent journalist that investigates government corruption, I think it's the ultimate, the most important job in this country. I truly believe that because the mainstream media has abandoned the American people. They have corporatized and they've completely abandoned the American people. I have worked with a lot of mainstream media journalists all across the country from all sorts of networks and local and national as well. They are beholden to their editors. They're just talking figures. They are just talking heads that repeat what their superiors want them to repeat. No one tells me what to say. No one gives me, no one tells me, hey, you can or cannot talk about this. I can talk about whatever I want because I'm independent. Now, as far as certain words I can use, I'm restricted in certain sense on YouTube and some social media platforms, but the topics of what I talk about are not restricted in any way. And I think that's important, and especially because the mainstream media, they'll do a story, and then it'll be like a 3-minute story. And a lot of the time, if you look at any one of their channels, it's always like 3 minutes or less. These stories that they're doing, and they just tell the very brief points, and that's it. You know, I've gone on for hours and hours and hours talking about things to get into the nitty gritty, to go through the court case, to go through the court file, to look at the lawsuit, to see the facts of the case, and no one can tell me otherwise. My only bosses are my viewers, and you know, they tell me what they want to see. If they want to watch it, they can watch it. If they don't, they don't. But independent journalism, people like, you know, Leroy Truth from Leroy Truth Investigations, you know, he does great. He does great work exposing different politicians and mainstream media as well. And it's important as independent media to have integrity, and they won't. Again, the corporate media, mainstream media, has abandoned the American people 100%. They are on the side of the politicians. They are on the side of the law enforcement agencies, of the government, because they get special access. I can't go walk into the White House or the Department of Defense. Well, I've heard, you know, most people can't walk into the Department of Defense anymore, or Department of War, I guess. But I don't have any special access to law enforcement agencies. They don't give me tips about anything. I assure you of that, unless it's off the record. They do. They have all this special access to all these different things, but that comes at a price. That comes at a price to where they're told what to say, they're told what stories to cover. They paint the narrative. For example, the Sergeant, to give you an example of how the mainstream media is failing the American people, is the Sergeant Fahey incident. In the IA report, they said that my cameraman had a mask and a hood. They said that there were no trespassing signs. Yeah, and that they said that there were no trespassing signs that I edited out of my video, which are all complete lies.
I'm saying it right here on iHeart and on everywhere, on all the FM stations. I watched you live stream that.
Right.
You walked the curtilage. There was no sign. I saw it all live right here. I'm saying it on my show.
But the issue is that when the Connecticut State Police says that I edited the video to take out these signs, that my cameraman was dressed in a suspicious way, that would all factually false by video evidence, and all the mainstream media journalists will do is regurgitate that report. There's no more investigative journalists out there. They won't say, well, this is what the state police is saying, but this is what we saw and they are lying. They will never call the state police liars.
We know that YouTube screens out 90%. This show right now here, everything you said, none of it's going to get edited, and it's all going to be live, and it's going to be there.
Right. You know, Eric, I'll add to that. I do think independent journalism is sort of the future, at least for the foreseeable future. And I agree with Sean that the mainstream media has been we have been abandoned by them. Now, all you got to do is, this is a different conversation, but follow the money about why that is, right? You know, these guys are built around, they become mouthpieces of the wealthy owners of the news stations, right? You know,
major corporations.
The major corporations, News Corp, you know, Paramount, owned by essentially a very wealthy, concentrated group of people. And these same people have already bought half of our politicians, right? And so essentially the mainstream media has become the mouthpiece for those with wealth and power. And that includes our government at the end of the day. And so the deal is the only reason why we haven't slid into some deeper, darker, you know, non-democratic government right now is because independent journalists are doing the job that mainstream media has lost the ability to do. And so, you know, at the end of the day,
a lot of nerve to do that. It takes a lot of nerve to, and my hat's off to you, both of you guys. I mean, Sean, you've been to jail 13 times. I mean, come on.
13 times, yeah, 13 times, and again, no criminal convictions of those 13 times. And it goes to show you, you know, I was doing a correctional facility, and one of the correctional officers said, "Hey, how many times have you been arrested?" And I was like, 13 times. And they said, "Well, that says a lot about you, doesn't it?" No, ma'am. It doesn't say a lot about me. It says a lot about our government and law enforcement agencies across this country that they would arrest a man for peacefully exercising his constitutional rights 13 times. I have never threatened anyone. I don't use profanities. I don't escalate the situation. I am very respectful with everybody I come in contact with. And that's, you know, during my training.
How often do you get pulled over and ticketed?
Not so much anymore. Now that it's just it might be shocking, but not so much anymore, because they know my car by now, and they don't want to be on YouTube. So they kind of just leave me alone at this point. But back in the day, yeah, a lot. Or I've been retaliated against where I've used Attorney Shield personally. So I don't use Attorney Shield in my everyday videos because it's not
I
meant
may
for that.
need it after today, after this
Right.
episode.
Right.
Well, Sean brings a really good point. Sean is an auditor, First Amendment auditor and independent journalist, right? And independent auditors, if they're going to do that job, they need to know their rights and know their craft, if you will. And the deal is what we made a strategic decision when we launched Attorney Shield that we would have a prohibition on First Amendment auditing. And so when Sean uses the app, it's because he's not in his First Amendment auditing role. And the reason why we make that decision is that there's a lot of people out there that look up to Sean and what Sean does, but they don't have the courage to or the time to educate themselves the way Sean has. And so what we didn't want is we didn't want Attorney Shield to turn into sort of the amateur First Amendment auditor tool book, right? So, at the end of the day, we had to put a prohibition on that. And still some people try. They'll run up into police departments or courthouses. And as soon as the attorney gets on, they'll say, is this police-initiated contact? And they'll say, well, I'm here to get paperwork from the courts. And they'll tell them that we're not here for that, right? At the end of the day, this is for people.
A non-consensual stop. A non-consensual.
Right. That's right. Attorney Shield is for people who really need help, right? This isn't for the amateur.
Dave, why don't you finish up the segment? Tell them how much it is, where they can get it, and all that. Remember, we have viewers and listeners. And I'm going to put it all into the description, but I want them in the car to hear it.
Yeah, so the easiest way to get to our website, and that's the easiest way to learn more about us, is if you just type in attorneybutton.com. That will resolve to attorney-shield.com. And that'll be our website. And there's videos out there. There's testimonials out there. There's a lot of resources out there. And I would encourage you to read our blog because we also talk about these issues, all of the issues that we talked about here. We have blog articles where we've got deep analysis into what's happening in our government.
Please send me that link so I can include that in all this.
I will send you that link. And, look, our plans begin at roughly $15 a month. But if you buy semi-annual or annual up front, you get discounts as it relates to that. We also have a family plan.
Is there something that I can offer to my viewers that I can put out? Is there a link or something I can put out to my viewers and listeners?
Yeah, I'll send you something right after this call that you can put it out there for sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I would encourage people to check out our YouTube page too. We have several examples of the app in action. Yeah. So just in case you're curious about how it works, it's out there.
I just want to say this quickly is that David is a great leader of our company.
Really
He's done a great job. I'm very honored to be a part of Attorney Shield. It's something where, Lackluster, who is also a partner of Attorney Shield, and we wanted to do more than just report on these matters. We wanted to actually affect change in real time. And for $15 a month, I know I pay more for my HBO Max subscription and Netflix subscription. So for $15 a month,
and to be realistic, you're probably not going to get the ticket you might have got.
It might not happen, or it might happen. What will happen is that your rights will be protected at all times. Regardless of the ticket, the main thing is to get home safe. Your rights will be protected. You'll have video evidence of the encounter. Your children, think about, again, I see it as think about your children, your elderly parents, people with, disabilities, things of that nature that can have an attorney be able to speak for them and de-escalate the situation. To me, it's priceless. I don't get involved with a lot of companies, but this is something that I believe in.
I think you need to start getting involved with some two-way.
Yeah, sure.
We need two-way leadership when we need it now.
Go ahead, David.
We're both 2A guys, and I'll tell you what, we write articles about 2A, and the biggest challenge for a 2A person is the perception that a police has of a person who actually has a weapon. Here in Florida, it's now open carry, right? And the deal is just because I open carry up at the park or, maybe up at the shopping plaza, I shouldn't be viewed as a criminal unless I'm enacting criminal behavior. And having a weapon on you is not criminal.
Does not make you a criminal.
Right?
Makes you a law-abiding citizen.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
I thank you both. Can you stay in the
No
room
problem.
30 seconds after the closing?
Sure can. Thank you
you
so
very
much,
much.
Eric.
Sean
Sure.
Paul
I just
Reyes,
gotta
Long Island Audit,
thank you so much.
Wilson, Attorney Shield, two of the finest guys. Stay in agreement.
Appreciate you, Eric. Thank you for having us.
We're going to talk in a few. Thanks, buddy. When situations reach a certain level, we have to bring out as much information as possible. What we've seen tonight is rights only matter if they're exercised. It's like a muscle. We all have pectoral muscles, chest muscles. We got biceps, we got triceps, we got all these muscles. But if you're not exercising or not using them, you have muscle atrophy. Well, we have rights in the United States Constitution, and when you don't use them, you have atrophy. You have to exercise your rights. It's the only way you have them. And Attorney Shield is giving you Americans, us Americans, the power to stand up and to exercise those rights, to be the free American we proclaim to be across the world, the guiding light that we proclaim to be across the world. We are the beacon of freedom for the world. And thanks to Attorney Shield and people like Sean Paul Reyes, you can do that. Attorney Shield will have counsel instantly with you to ensure that you are protected, safe, and that all your rights are protected and moving forward. We're not saying members of law enforcement are bad at all. That is not. You've heard this conversation clear. Nobody said that at all. Sometimes rights get trampled on. Sometimes rights get forgotten. The old saying, give somebody an inch, they take a mile. Every time you say yes, give a little bit more than you wanted to give. Long Island Audit gives Americans every day the eyes and ears on the street demanding accountability. Together they prove, undoubtedly they prove, that liberty does not just survive by accident. It survives because citizens are willing to defend it. And these two gentlemen truly are. Attorney Shield, you need to look it up, folks. I'll have all the information available. If you need to reach out to me, you can get me at ericandrewcinotti.com. I will set you up, get set up with Attorney Shield. I will put you in contact. Check out Long Island Audit page. Amazing content, amazing content. But unfortunately, folks, we're coming to a hard close. Ladies and gentlemen, justice is not a gift, okay? It's not a gift. It is the gift of the people, not a gift of the government. It's a gift of the people. And you know what? It is our birthright. We were born in this nation to be born among free men and women. From Lexington and Concord to the streets of America today, freedom has always been defended by ordinary citizens standing tall against extraordinary power. Just like David serving in the military and myself, ordinary citizens raising their right hand and saying, hey, I want to help out. I want to do the right thing. And David is continuing that fight today with Attorney Shield. That fight is not our history. It is our duty. It must continue. Our rights are not negotiable, folks. This is not Russia. This is not North Korea. We are not Iran. They are not conditional. Our rights are not conditional. They are not for sale, nor will they ever be. The Constitution belongs to us, the people, as Sean Paul Reyes would say, we the people. It belongs to we the people. It belongs to us. The power belongs to the Americans. And the future of our liberty in this beautiful nation is written by we the people. I'm Eric A. Cinotti, and this is Unplugged. Stay sharp, stay strong, and never forget, America's greatest defense is its people. God bless America. See you next time.